So what I am working on right now is a section of what we're calling the pelvic shield of the Nodosaur that has been affectionately termed Lord Clive by the people at the Paleon Museum. And so this particular element was pulled out this field season. It was discovered and dug and jacketed and brought back here to the prep lab. And what I am working on doing now is cleaning it up so that we can actually see what we've got. So this darker brown is all bone, and all this sandy stuff has got to get out of the way so that we can actually see the entire surface.
So a nodosaur, those are what are commonly known as the armored dinosaurs, correct?
Yes. So a nodosaur is a kind of ankylosaur. So those were the big armored dinosaurs with the tail clubs.
And these are all those little bumps that people are looking at now are called scutes?
Yes. Each individual sort of polygonal section here, each individual lump is its own scute, its own osteoderm, a bone that grows within the skin. And in this case, all of these different osteoderms have fused together to create one solid surface. And this would have been located across the hip, over the top of the hips of the animal. Hence why we call it a pelvic shield, because that's not an area that needs to be very flexible. So all of the osteoderms can be fused together there and then separate across the rest of the body so that the animal can still move and groove.
And why did they have these?
Nodosaurs had armor like this, mostly for protection. So this is a very big, slow-moving, herbivorous dinosaur eating plants, walking around doing its thing. And it is not going to be able to outrun the top predator at the same time and place, which was a T-Rex. And so in order to keep itself safe, these animals have armored plates that cover their body. This is the bone that forms that armor, and then over top of this bone would have been a sort of keratinous layer. So keratin is the same thing that our fingernails and hair are made out of, and on top of each of these little bumps, there would have been a little spike. So here where it's raised in the middle, there's a little bit of a point, and it's domed on the surface of the bone, but the keratinous sheath in life that covered it would have had a sharper spike to it. So if you're a tyrannosaur, you do not want to try and take a bite out of a nodosaur.
So do you think there was an evolutionary battle between animals like this growing thicker and harder and bigger scutes and body armor and tyrannosaurs and other carnivorous predators developing teeth that could pierce them?
I absolutely do. So we know that tyrannosaurs have teeth that are specially adapted to crush through bone. And you might think that that would be a good way to deal with a nodosaur, but because of the keratinous sheaths that would cover these osteoderms, it's not just bone that they have to get through, and it's not just a sort of blunt, hard turtle shell casing that they would have to bite through. It's incredibly sharp points. So here is another osteoderm from the same animal. This is what we think was probably a shoulder spike. And you can see this keel here, this line, and then it comes to a fairly sharp point. So this would have been, we think, probably on the shoulder of the animal, like that. And the keratinous sheath would have made this point even longer and sharper. And this whole edge here, where there's a keel on the bone, there would have been a blade, almost, of keratin. And so if you're a T-Rex and you take a bite out of this, you're not only having to puncture this incredibly dense, hard bone, you're also having to risk getting your mouth cut up into a bunch of little pieces.
So I know that the famous Dr. Bob Bacher used to call animals like the hadrosaurs, the duck-billed dinosaurs, the cows of the Cretaceous. Mm-hmm. Were these, which were very abundant, were these animals abundant as hadrosaurs?
Probably not. So we don't have as many of these guys. And we also don't have a lot of evidence for them being very social. So if the hadrosaurs are the cows of the Cretaceous, I would say a nodosaur is maybe more like a rhinoceros, where even the lions don't really mess with them very much. They're a little more solitary, they're a little less common, they're not traveling in huge groups. So far, a lot of the evidence that we have points to that being the case for nodosaurs and ankylosaurs.